Paid for by Bar Justice.
Attention. Have you or a loved one been diagnosed with cancer after using Zantac or other heartburn medications for several months? Zantac may be linked to these cancers: bladder, colorectal, esophageal, intestinal, kidney, liver, ovarian, pancreatic, stomach, testicular, and uterine. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with cancer after using Zantac or other heartburn medications for several months, call now. Never stop taking medication without first consulting a physician. Call right now for a free consultation. Call 800-379-9550. 800-379-9550.
At Wheatland Seed, we've helped families prepare for the days ahead by providing fresh, locally grown food storage products. Our fall stock-up sale is in full swing, with sale prices on premium baking wheats, just $26.99 for 26 pounds, or pinto beans, just $39.99 for 21 pounds. Order today for home delivery or local pickup at wheatlandseed.com. That's wheatlandseed.com.
It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Go! Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we welcome you to the Garden Show with Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden. I'm Will Feelright. Glad to have you along with us for this show that actually is pre-recorded. Won't be able to take phone calls today due to conflict in some schedules, but going to be answering all sorts of garden questions, lawn questions, and of course insects are going crazy still, Mark, and just a lot going on as the temperatures are cooling down.
There's just something about plagues and pestilence that just kind of goes along with the garden show, you know. So between the bugs and the weeds and the diseases that are popping up right now, it's like everybody's got plenty to do. Yeah.
But I'll take these over the 90s that we were dealing with a couple weeks ago, because being outside is so much better now.
Weather's been amazing. Yeah, it's been so nice. So the cooler temperatures and the rainstorms, and, you know, we've had, you know, a really great amount of water showing up and cooler temperatures. So we can definitely talk about how to regulate your water a little bit on the show, and how to, you know, cut back, because, you know, all this water that's falling strangely from the sky.
Yeah, love it. Haven't seen it for a while.
Yeah. And then the cooler temperatures just make it so much nicer. And if we could enjoy 70s for the next month and a half, and an occasional rainstorm coming through like we're getting, boy, that would just do nothing but help our water situation for fall, help our water situation for next year, and just pretty much make it so we really don't have to water for the rest of the season. It would be so nice. So I got my fingers crossed. It's great for the garden too, man. Cucumbers just are breathing a sigh of relief. The tomato plants are loving it, but you know, cooler temperatures mean it's going to take a little longer for some of those fruits to ripen up. So we can do some things to help with that also.
Yeah. So I was out in the garden, and I've still got zucchini coming out of my ears.
Yeah.
A neighbor of mine, I had to laugh. We have a neighborhood Facebook group, and one of my neighbors put a message on there saying, "Hey, does anybody have a few zucchini that they could donate to me?" And I thought, you don't want to open up that can of worms.
Don't open it. Yeah,
You're
don't
gonna be
open
getting
it.
zucchini like you can't believe.
You know, when you don't have it, then you know, you wish you had a little bit. I mean, we even picked pears this week. Yeah, so it's like, you know, fall harvest season is right in full swing. So between the cucumbers and the cantaloupes that I'm pulling out of my garden right now, they're just amazing. Peaches have come on, so we're harvesting peaches and nectarines. The pears are starting to ripen up. I mean, it's just nonstop goodies coming out of the garden, the orchard right now. And sometimes it's more than you can handle.
Yeah,
it's like,
definitely.
you know, I can only can and freeze so much stuff before I just like keel over from exhaustion. So
we had to make a little run to go grab some more canning jars, because we've canned more beans this year, thankfully.
Yeah.
than we've canned in the last 4 to 5 years.
Hey, at least you can find jars and lids.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. There
like,
was only a couple cases left, and we snatched them.
But still, it's like they've been more accessible this year. So we're seeing some good things happening. Hey, it's just so interesting how one item being unavailable can just throw everything else off. So I actually was at the new bridge on 100 West here in Logan on 600 South. So I got to go tour the bridge the other day. And so we got to go walk across the bridge, see the construction that's going on. They are running water lines underneath the bridge, which is really cool.
Wow.
But, all it takes is one thing not being accessible. And so there's a water valve that they need for this 18-inch line that's going underneath the bridge. And it doesn't look like that valve is going to be available until like next June.
Oh.
And it will just basically make it so we can't open.
The whole project is on hold.
It stops the whole. Well, it doesn't stop the whole project, but it just makes it so that we can't open that road up until next summer.
All because of one valve.
One valve for that water line. Because, if like we tear the road up and have to put that water line in, but then you need to put the valve in, then you have to tear it all up again. And so it's just pushing everything 6 to 8 months behind for one item that we can't get. So interesting.
Logan High School, they're dealing with their track that's still torn up because of cement.
Yeah, and that's what it takes, you know. And right now, all the contractors are really struggling to get that one thing that you need to finish the project, and it just pushes everything back. Fortunately, we have not had that problem with seeds or with fertilizer has been more expensive this year, but at least we've been able to get it. Yeah, we've been able to get it. We've been able to get the pesticides. We've been able to get basically everything, but pricing on some things has been a little higher than what we would like to see it, but at least it's available. And everybody has had great success this year, whether it's been planting seeds or planting plants, or it just seems like even though it's been hot, it's been a really great productive growing season for everybody. So,
and about the only thing that we've talked about that really was not in stock at all was insecticide for grasshoppers.
Nolobate. Yep. Yeah. The Nolobate was the only thing that we couldn't get a hold of this year. So, we've had other options for the grasshoppers, and hopefully our distributor will be able to produce plenty of Nolobate for next year. So we have our fingers crossed. And the other item that we've been totally out of stock is our Pido. And so that's coming in the next week or 10 days. So we got our fingers crossed that we'll have Pido, because guess what? It's pie season. It's pie season. Yeah. And a wonderful listener that listened to me complain about my sad pie dough experience that heard us on the radio a couple weeks ago. She brought me a recipe, so that was very kind.
I'll try some
that was
pie
very
dough.
thoughtful, yes. And I don't think it was the recipe that I was using. It was Mark cooked it too long.
User
had the
there.
Had the convection oven going, and it looked great. It just wasn't brown and toasty enough on the top, so we let it go a little bit, and it was just like a little too
much
cooked. Yeah, a little too cooked. So I will cut back on the timing of the cooking for the next batch, and we'll see how it goes. But man, the pie filling was amazing. It was like perfect, but the crust was a little too cooked.
Yeah, between peaches and apples, and you mentioned some pears coming off your trees now. I think ours are going to be coming off in a couple weeks.
Some delicious peach pie just the other day. Mighty tasty.
Great.
Yep. But cash sale is still going on at Anderson, so there are some great things going on this week at Anderson Seed and Garden. So today is the marathon, Logan Marathon, and we are the headquarters for the marathon. So everyone got to come register on Friday for the marathon at Anderson Seed and Garden, and that's been going on today. And then we also have the festival.
Yeah, that's coming up this afternoon.
Yeah. So the
Latino Festival.
The Latino Festival. It was so much fun last year. Like last year, I don't know if it just we weren't listening or we didn't see the promotions for it, but we kind of were caught a little unawares that was happening in the afternoon after the marathon. But what a party. Yeah. It was so much fun. And we really had a blast, and there was just tons of people out there, and there was music, and there was dancing, and just all kinds of fun things going on. So I'm actually really looking forward to that this year. I mean, the marathon's cool, but those those Latinos, they know how to party.
Yeah. Between the food trucks and then they've got the parade and then the Zumba.
So come down and enjoy the party on Center Street, and get to know some new people and stop into Anderson's. We got the cash sale going on. You can grab a tree. You can grab some new shrubs. I've got some perennials that are on sale. And if you pay cash, you get the full discount. You get 50% off of regular price. If you don't pay with cash, you still get a great discount. It's 40% off for a check or a credit card or a debit card. But if you pay in cash, you'll get that extra 10%. You'll be able to get 50% off of our excellent selection of trees and shrubs and evergreens. I've got some nice fruit trees. I still have I think 70 to 80 fruit trees. Some really nice ones. Yeah, they're gorgeous. They're fully leafed out. Lots of growth on them. Most of them are 6 to 8 feet tall. Lots of growth on them. These trees look awesome, and they're half price. And we've got some new perennials that just came in that are in full bloom, and they're half price as well too. So take advantage of the fall clearance sale. Take advantage of enjoying the Latino Festival, and we're celebrating. What is it? I can't remember how many years it is for the Mexican independence is kind of what's going on. And I saw it. I saw it the other day, and I can't remember how many days. We'll have to look it up. I'll have to look it up. But the festival was so much fun last year. It really was great. So lots of things happening on Center Street, and should be a great time downtown today.
And one of those fun opportunities where you shut off Center Street, and it's just fun.
Yes.
To just hang out down in that block.
Yeah.
Whether you're watching the runners come in or hanging out and just waiting for the Latino Festival. That's what we did last year.
Next year, we are hoping to get the Giant Pumpkin Growers Association way off on Center Street the last weekend of September. So we've got our fingers crossed. We're going to really push for it this year, and hopefully next year we'll be able to have the Giant Pumpkin Growers way off right there on Center Street. Kind of have a fall festival. Again, have the food trucks there. Have kind of a fall market, and let the pumpkin growers bring in their giant pumpkins for weighing the pumpkins. They'll actually have their weigh off right there on Center Street. So so that's what we're shooting for. We got our fingers crossed. We were hoping to do it this year, and it just got too late in the season before we could kind of get the details finalized. So we're going to shoot again for next year and see how that works out. So, but right now, Latino Festival this afternoon. Marathon's going on right now. It is our Mad Money Bulb Exchange. So bulbs are here. So all of our fall bulbs are arriving, if not here already. And we will have probably 80 different kinds of tulips. I'll have about 20 different kinds of daffodils, about 15 kinds of hyacinths, and a whole bunch of crocus and allium, and just a whole bunch of fall bulbs, along with the garlic. And we've got those available at Anderson's for right now. It's perfect time to pick up your bulbs. I like to plant in October. So I usually wait till we get that first hard frost that kills everything back, and that's when I plant. But now's the time to get them.
You can grab them.
Yeah, now's the time to get them. And I know the Logan Regional Hospital is doing a nice little shindig next weekend for breast cancer awareness, and they're going to plant a whole bunch of pink tulips at the cancer center. So that should be fun. And I think it's kind of a Kentucky Derby themed event. And so that should be fun too. They're going to plant 1,200 bulbs right there at the cancer center. Yeah. So that should be really fun too.
Oh, when those bloom, it's going to be beautiful.
Oh, it'll be gorgeous. Yeah. In the springtime. And we've kind of planned it so they've got some bulbs that bloom early, some that bloom mid-season, and some that bloom late. And these are all tulips. So they'll be able to get 6 to 8 weeks of bloom out of all those bulbs. If we get them planted right, they'll just have color out there all spring long. It'll last almost 2 months. So yeah, it's fun to plant bulbs, and it's amazing to see what you can create and how easy they are to do.
One of the few plants that I can actually keep from dying. You can bury them. There really isn't anything to it.
No.
You just bury them, put them just under just a couple inches of soil, and that's it.
Yep. Doesn't get any easier. Dig your hole, put a little fertilizer down the bottom, drop your bulbs in, cover them up. And I like to plant big clumps of bulbs. Instead of doing like one bulb per hole, I dig bigger holes, and I put 5 to 7 to even a dozen bulbs.
With a variety of color?
Yeah, or the same color, too, because you can do like big splashes of the same color if you want to do it that way. So a great thing about bulbs is you can mix and match. You can do solid colors. It's kind of personal preference, but it all looks great. Yeah. It all looks good. But I like to do those big clumps of color that come up, and then it draws your eye to all those flowers that are blooming all in one big bunch. And so that's the way I like to do it. But cover them up. Usually with tulips, you're about 4 to 6 inches deep, and water them afterwards. And pretty much Mother Nature takes care of all the rest. It just makes it super easy. So at Anderson's, all those bulbs are coming in. They all come in from Holland. So all of our bulbs are Holland grown. But we bring in a lot of different types of tulips. We bring in a bunch of different daffodils, some smaller ones that bloom early, some big ones that bloom later, and then the giant alliums are just gorgeous. They'll get 4 to 5 feet tall, and some of the flowers on them are 12 inches across. Yeah, so just really pretty. And crocus come up early, lots of color, fun. Yeah.
I did one of those holiday bulbs last year during the Christmas open house.
The amaryllis.
Amaryllis bulbs.
Yeah.
And gave it to my wife, and it was amazing. It was just kind of fun to watch.
Yes.
It just continued to grow, and just a couple days right around, it was mid-December.
Yeah.
It started to blossom and was just gorgeous. We had it right in our kitchen by our sink, and
yep. Amaryllis bulbs will be showing up in about 3 weeks. So it's usually around the first week of October. And last year we had about 20 to 22 different colors on the amaryllis bulbs, and a lot of different sizes. So the bigger the bulb, the more flowers they put out. Yeah. And the same kind of goes for tulips and daffodils. It's like the larger the bulb, the bigger the show you're going to get out of them. And so the size of the bulb is directly related to the size of the flower. So if you're planting smaller bulbs, then you're going to have smaller flowers. The bigger the bulb, the bigger the flowers are going to be. Yeah. So they are directly related to the size of the bulb. And, the better quality bulbs definitely come from Holland. And they have perfect growing conditions. And I visited with Hank Stoofbergen the other day. He's going to be on the show in the coming weeks. I think he's coming through the first part of October. So we've already got that planned. He'll come and share some great tips and exciting new things about bulbs right from Holland. Yep, it's great to have him on the show, and he's always got some good insight to share with us.
Definitely became a new holiday tradition in our family that we're going to continue on, because it was just a lot of fun watching that grow. As we were getting excited for Christmas.
So not only do we have the tulips and the daffodils and the hyacinths and the crocus and the alliums that have come in, but just got a new batch of garlic too. So usually we have about 20 varieties of garlic, and with this new batch that came in, I think we've got 20. And I've got some that are fully organic, and so they're certified organic. I've got some that are just locally grown. They're grown organically, but they're not certified. So they're great to eat. I take them home and roast them. We use them in pasta and sauces and all kinds of different things. So this garlic is ready to consume, but it's also ready to plant. And perfect time for planting. We have a whole bunch of varieties of hardnecks. I think we've got 12 or 13 varieties of hardnecks and 6 or 8 varieties of softnecks. Now, softnecks will keep longer than the hardneck variety, so they're a better keeper. They tend to store a lot longer, usually somewhere between 4 to 6 months. Some of the varieties will store a little bit longer, but 4 to 6 months is more than adequate time to store that garlic. And just some great flavors out of those soft necks. The hard necks don't keep quite as long, so they're usually a 3 to 4 month keeper. Sometimes not quite as long, maybe 2 to 4 months would be more appropriate, but they have a really rich flavor. So the hardneck varieties have a more robust, a little bit more of a rich flavor to it. And when it comes down to it, they all taste like garlic.
Yeah, it's all garlic. Just a little different coloring, different packaging.
Different coloring, different wrapper on those, different growth habits. All these varieties grow. They're all grown in southern Idaho and in northern Utah. So all of our sources are just really local. Yeah, and they grow great in our soils. They'll perform well here, and just a lot of fun ones to try. It's just kind of fun to try something different, and some of the bulbs are gorgeous. They've got like purple skin on them, and some are more of a red tinge, pink. Open them up and nice big cloves, and when you roast them, boy, that flavor just really kicks in.
Comes out. Well, and it's a lot of fun too, because a lot of us are kind of pulling the gardens back. We're starting to pull them down. The corn's coming down, And so it gives you something else to plant for right now.
Yep. A great time to plant anytime from now until the ground freezes for the garlic. And for the tulips, daffodils, hyacinths, pretty much the same thing. You can plant anytime from now until the ground freezes. We've even planted in mid to late December, first part of January sometimes if the ground thaws out and we can get out there and do a little planting. Just get them out there. They need about 12 weeks of cold weather in the ground to really produce a good root system and to produce a flower bud. And so they need that cold temperature for about 3 months to really set the blossoms properly on those flowers. And so if you get them in by the 1st of January, you're in great shape. They will just flower a little bit later, the later you put them in. So instead of blooming, like say your early tulips blooming, the end of March, first part of April, it'll push them back a couple of weeks. So they'll be like mid-April, end of April before they start to bloom. So they will still bloom great. They'll just bloom a little bit later than they would normally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know you've had a lot of questions coming in to Anderson Seed and Garden, and probably one of them at the top of the list is, what do we do with all of the insects that we're still getting inundated with?
Yeah.
Grasshoppers are still out there, box elder bugs.
Right. I had 3 or 4 people in just today, well, actually, this week, that had problems with box elder bugs and wasps attacking their fruit on their trees, whether it was peaches or apples or pears. And I think what's happening is the fruit has been either damaged by, like, birds will come in and peck the fruit, and then it like opens the skin up, and then the sap kind of flows out, and then the other insects are really, really attracted to it. So in most cases, I don't think the box elder bugs are actually doing the initial damage. I don't think the wasps are doing the initial damage. It's something else is happening to them. So weather related, the wind blew and it bumped it against the branch, and then it kind of scored the side of the fruit, and then the juices start coming out, and then
the insects are like, hey.
oh, free lunch. It's like and then the wasps just kind of they just come in there like crazy, and they're just taking advantage of the situation, not causing it, just taking advantage of it. But if they're doing that, they're damaging the fruit, and if you want to keep your fruit from getting damaged, we would want to spray them with an insecticide. So we need something safe enough that's going to be effective against box elder bugs and wasps, because those are the ones that are kind of taking, they're the ones that are doing the most damage. Seen a few earwigs, had some earwigs into my peaches too. It's where the peaches had kind of cracked open and the earwigs were just having a heyday in there. They did not cause it. They were just taking advantage of the situation. But spray that's going to be safe to use up to a few days of harvest. You've got permethrin is going to be effective. New version of 7 is going to do a great job. There's Lambda cylohethrin, like the Sayonara would be really good. There's some great options out there. You just got to check the label to see how long between when you spray to when you harvest you can use it. So on the permethrin and on the 7, I think it's 7 to 14 days depending on which fruit you're using it on. So just make sure and double check the label. But you need something that's going to be a little bit more potent, because the wasps are hard to control. And the box elder bugs are even harder.
Are even worse.
Yeah, they're even harder. And so you need one of those newer generation synthetic insecticides to do a really good job. Now, this summer we had been spraying the hanging baskets and the flowers on Center Street pretty consistently to stay on top of the tobacco budworms, but they just really went crazy there the end of August and just kind of decimated the flowers on not just some of our hanging baskets, but on people all over the valley. This, like, all their petunias and geraniums just stopped blooming. And so we kind of had to shift gears and go to a little more potent insecticide. We shifted to deltamethrin, which is really, really effective. And it did a great job
knocking them down
on the tobacco budworms. Yeah, where we were trying the 7, we were trying Tempo, and it just wasn't quite getting it. And then we shifted to the deltamethrin. The product's called Defense. It did a really amazing job on the tobacco budworms. We checked them this week, and we didn't find one live budworm that was out there nibbling.
Just took care of them all.
Just took care of them all. So they're all starting to flower again. So good time to fertilize your hanging baskets. Good time to fertilize your flowers. Don't fertilize your vegetables anymore. We're done fertilizing the vegetables. But it is a really good time to do your lawn.
Yeah.
Especially with all this rain. I mean, it'll really perk the lawn up. So if you can get some a fertilizer on in between these rainstorms, because it looks like we might get some more rain again next week. That would be sensational. It'll really perk your lawn up, get it looking good. It's also a good time to overseed too. We're getting these storms, it'll be perfect.
And talking about insects, we're still seeing, I know at least around our neighborhood, and my garden especially, still seeing squash bugs every once in a while too.
Yep.
They're still out there like, hey, there's still zucchini here, so I'm gonna.
Squash bugs are tough.
Come after it.
They're one of the hardest insects to kill, kind of in the same category as the box elder bugs, where they're just very resilient and resistant to a lot of different insecticides. So the deltamethrin that I mentioned that we sprayed for the tobacco budworms, it comes in a dust form, and the dust form is really, really effective on the squash beetles and safe to use, like right up to like the day before you harvest on most things, and it's water repellent, and so the dust will actually repel water, so it won't wash off really easily
in the rain.
Yeah, it's one of the very few dusts that's out there that's not only effective on the insects, but it's super effective because it doesn't get washed off every time it rains. So the deltamethrin dust would be great. The 7 liquid would be excellent. The permethrin does a really good job for the squash bugs as well too. And you're right, we're seeing a lot of squash bugs kicking up and a lot of mildew still.
Yeah, especially mildew with the rain.
Yeah.
Got
higher humidity. Time to spray again. I sprayed mine a couple weeks ago, and they've been great. But I did lose a couple butternut squash, and I think it was one of my pumpkins, either to squash bugs and or powdery mildew, both.
Yeah,
they're tough.
They've been really going after our pumpkins, and it's weird, but we have some summer squash right up next to the pumpkins.
Yeah.
And I just keep watching, and they're staying in the pumpkins.
Haven't bothered those. So that's good. That's a good sign.
Well, coming up in just a minute after we head through the break, we need to talk about prepping our gardens because, as you pull out the corn, as you pull out some of those crops, how do you get the garden ready for next season? Plus, also, we can talk more about how to prep your lawn for the winter months. Great time to get the fertilizer in. And as a reminder, the fall cash sale's going on right now. Chance to save up to 50% on trees and shrubs. We'll talk more about that coming up on The Garden Guide here on KVNU. With your KVNU News update here at the bottom of the hour, I'm Will Feelwright. It's brought to you by the Duck Hunter. Well, Utah's non-farm payroll employment for August of this year increased an estimated 3.4% across the past 12 months, with the state's economy adding a cumulative of 54,400 jobs since August of last year. Meanwhile, the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate stayed the same at 2%. Unchanged from July. Mark Knoll, chief economist with the Department of Workforce Services, said that this month's economic data continues to hold strong in the face of national dialogue about inflation and other economic hurdles. 8 of Utah's 10 major private sector industry groups posted net year-over-year job gains, led by trade, transportation, and utilities. And recently, several tribes met together at Old Faithful Lodge to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Yellowstone National Park. And during KVNU's For the People show this week, local resident Darren Perry, who is president of the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation, said that Yellowstone is his favorite national park and is historically very important to the Shoshone people.
Just the Shoshones, but it takes up such a big landmass area that it's a sacred place for many tribes, the Nez Perce and Crow, and many of the tribes, along with the Shoshones, found that a place of healing.
Perry said at the time in 1872, it was amazing that a mass land size of Yellowstone was preserved and didn't go to immigrants who were making their way from the East Coast. Well, looking at temperatures to stay right around the mid-70s as this storm making its way out of the area. That's going to leave us with some warming weather as we head into this next week, as temperatures going to start moving back into the high 70s to low 80s for this next week. I'm Will Feelwright for KVNU News.
From ABC Sports. Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Ant. With the regular season ending soon, every Albert Pujols at bat is a stop-on-your-tracks moment as he closes in on 700 home runs. Bottom of the 6th last night against the Reds, Pujols at the dish with his team down 2 and a man on.
A swing and a long drive. Left field. Albert Pujols just tied the game.
The call on KMOX, that's career home run number 698, leaving him 2 shy with 17 games left. St. Louis tops Cincinnati 6-5. Houston looking to clinch a playoff spot an inch closer to clinching their division while hosting the lowly A's. Slugger Yordan Alvarez made this a career night.
Pitch on the way, and Alvarez whips this one deep to right center. Kissett got by. Back-to-back jacks.
The call on KBME, that was Alvarez's 3rd homer of the game, and the Astros hit 5 solo dingers and blanked Oakland 5-0. This is ABC Sports.
From gardening to landscaping, it's the Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to the Garden Guide here on News Talk KVNU. We'll feel right along with Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden. As we mentioned at the top of the show, due to some scheduling conflicts, this show is being pre-recorded, so not taking calls for the show today, but we will be back next week to take those phone calls, and instead we're talking about all of the questions that have come up in the last week at Anderson Seed and Garden, and there has been a lot of them, especially in regards to watering, fertilizing our lawns, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But we want to mention, too, right now, with a lot going on down on Center Street today, the fall cash sale.
Yeah. It is a party on Center Street today.
A lot of fun.
Between the marathon and between the Latino Festival this afternoon, which is just a blast, and we're doing the cash sale. If you are looking for some trees or shrubs, evergreens, vines, I've still got some great plants left, and we're hoping that you come in and take advantage of our sale and make a new home for them. Find a home for them. And if you pay with cash, you get an extra 10% discount off of our already great 40% off on the plants. And so you get a 50% discount. So you got to pay with cash and credit cards, debit cards, checks. You get 40% off. But if you pay with the cash, you get that extra 10% bonus, and you get 50% off on all of our remaining trees and fruit trees, shade trees, shrubs, flowers, evergreens, all that fun stuff.
You mentioned earlier this hour that a lot of fruit trees you've got 6 to 7 feet tall.
Yeah, we've got some gorgeous trees that are 6 to 8 feet tall, well branched. Some of the growth on those is 3 to 4 feet for this year on those trees, and so they are fully grown, leafed out. They're looking great. They're in 10-gallon pots. I think I've got somewhere between 70 and 80 trees left. A few apples, a few pears. I got some plums. Unfortunately, we sold all the peaches, but there were a bunch of apricots. So we did have apricots, and we did have plums, and there were some cherries left as well too. And so there's a great selection of fruit trees still available, and they are part of the cash sale, so you can get those for half price if you pay with cash. Just got some new perennial flowers in that are in bloom. So there's some nice lavenders, there's some asters, there's mums for fall blooming. These all look great. Brand new, they've come in. They're also on the cash sale as well too. Normally we don't do those on the cash sale for fall, but we decided to throw a little extra bonus out there for everybody. So yeah, good time to do that. And it's also Mad Money bulb exchange season as well too. So since all the tulip bulbs and daffodils and hyacinths and fall bulbs have arrived, we do a Mad Money exchange. So if you've been collecting Mad Money from Anderson's this year, so if you've been spending money at Anderson's, for every $10 that you spend, you get $1 back in Mad Money. You can use that Mad Money during our special sales. Right now is one of those special sales, and you can exchange your dollars of Mad Money for tulip bulbs. So we've got 4 different kinds of tulip bulbs, 4 different colors, and they're all Darwin hybrids, so they're kind of mid-season bloomers, and you can exchange 1 Mad Money point for 1 bulb. And so it's a really great time to come in and get some bulbs to add into your garden, or you can save your Mad Money and wait for the next sale, which comes up about the second week of December, right before Christmas. So you can save it and use it for Christmas, or you can come in and use it for bulbs right now. So that's if you've been spending money at Anderson's this year. We track all the Mad Money purchases, and if you've got Mad Money, you can come in and use it.
Okay, so Mad Money fall cash sale, 50% off, and plus just a party atmosphere down on Center Street today.
You know, between the marathon, which is kind of exciting, you got all those people down there cheering for each other, and how can you not cheer for somebody who finishes a marathon? You know, it's like
it's just a lot of fun.
I had somebody in the store yesterday, and he's like 80, and he was like, I've done 75 marathons. I don't know if I'm going to make it to 100. I really wanted to do 100, and I'm just like,
You did 75.
I haven't done one. So congratulations. Good job. You did 75. He was disappointed that he wasn't going to be able to do 100, darn it.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so that's the way it goes sometimes. But he is in great shape for an 80-year-old.
Oh,
he is in great
That's
shape.
Amazing.
So, yeah, he could do it. He could still do it.
I'm sure one of the questions that you're getting a lot right now, aside from marathon praising, is got to be with watering and taking care of your lawn. And with the rain that we've gotten, a lot of people are saying, how far should I cut back on my watering? What should I do fertilizing?
So this is where it's essential that you know how much water you're applying to your lawn with each application, because per week during the hot, dry part of the summer, we should be applying 1 to 1.5 inches of water in probably 2 applications, and that will get you through an entire week with just those 2 applications. Out of this storm system, we've gotten over 1 inch of water, and so that means you don't have to water for at least a week. And with cooler temperatures, where we're going to be in the low 70s for our high temperatures, that could last even longer. It could be a week or 10 days without you needing to water. So we've already turned our sprinklers off. We did that the first storm was like Tuesday night. Turned our sprinklers off because we saw how much water was coming. We saw the storms kind of lined up. We will kind of watch the weather, and we won't turn our sprinklers back on for 7 to 10 days. And that's if it goes completely dry.
Again,
yeah. So the more storms keep rolling through, just add 7 to 10 days to the last storm, and that's when you need to turn your sprinklers on. So we could really go, from today, we could go another week or 10 days, and if we get a couple storms next week like we're supposed to, we might even be to October before you might have to turn the sprinklers on. Yeah, which would be great, because I usually only water a couple times in October anyway, because we don't want our grass to continue growing, but I also want to make sure that there's good soil moisture for my trees and my shrubs in the yard as well too. So I will continue to water occasionally throughout the month of October, just to make sure that there's good soil moisture when fall really sets in and winter really sets in as well too. We want good soil moisture for all of our plants, so that when winter hits, that moisture's there, ground freezes, moisture stays there all winter long. Last year we had some great storms in October, some really big, juicy, wet storms, and it really hydrated the soil up, and that's what made things really good for us this summer, because all the water that we got that was limited in the mountains all went to runoff because the soil was wet already.
Yeah.
So hopefully we will get that again this year, and then all the extra moisture that we get this year, because we're going to get a lot of snow. I got my fingers.
Yeah.
I got my fingers, toes crossed. But then that would all be run off again and just fill all our reservoirs back up.
I was going to say, one of those storms, we may remember the 1st of October was that snowstorm.
The big snowstorm. Yep.
6 inches of snow.
Yep.
None of us were expecting
and
it.
that was a heavy, wet snow. I mean, there was like 1 inch of water in that snow, maybe even more. But it just hydrated the soil up, and the soil just stayed wet all through the fall. We couldn't till our garden in October because the soil was so wet from those storms, that were coming through. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we will get that kind of moisture again in October. But for right now, turn those sprinklers off, 7 to 10 days, and then we won't need to water again. But it's a perfect time to fertilize. It really doesn't get any better than right now. Good soil saturation really hydrates the soil up. Grass is going to start growing like crazy. Now's a perfect time to fertilize it, to get it to recover and rejuvenate from the hot, dry summer. So a little bit of humic would be excellent. So throw some humic on. Throw a slow-release nitrogen with fertilizer on there. It is the best time of year to control weeds. So if you want to do a weed and feed, great. The hard part about doing a weed and feed is your timing and your conditions have to be perfect. You got to, and
it's just so hard to hit that right spot.
You got to have 24 hours where it doesn't get watered. So you want to put it on when the grass is a little bit damp, but you want to leave it on for 24 hours before it gets watered in. Otherwise, your weed killer won't work. You want our daytime temperatures to be up in the 70s, which we're going to get. That's like perfect. But you need that 24 hours where the weed killer can stick on there. And so you got to apply it when it's wet, leave it on for 24, then water it in. And now's about as good a time as it gets to use a weed and feed. But if you don't have those types of conditions, the sprays just are super effective. So weed-free zone right now will take out morning glory. It'll get thistle, mallow, clover, dandelions, but it won't affect your grass. So you can just spray your turf, take care of all those weeds. If you kill all those weeds, it's a great time to overseed with a little bit of grass. Let the new grass take the place of the weeds, and then you won't have more weeds taking the place of the weeds that you just killed off, because they'll leave a bare spot. And a little bit of new grass in there, all of a sudden next year your grass will be really thick. It'll be full. It'll be a darker green. We've got some new grass in there. Fertilize, overseed right now, control weeds. Their timing is just like perfect for all that.
Last week we were talking about if you could only fertilize one time a year, this is the time.
This is the time. Between now and the end of October is like perfect for it. And it's also a really good time to aerate as well too. So, if you had a little bit of extra time and you really wanted to put a little bit of effort into making your lawn look really good for next year, but also maybe incorporate some new grass into it so you wouldn't have to water as much, because a lot of the newer varieties of grass use half as much water as what we're using for some of our more water needy grasses. But if we could incorporate some of those more tolerant grasses into our existing lawn, it'll make it more resilient. It'll be more disease resistant. It'll be more insect resistant, and you can use a lot less water to keep it green than what you've had in the past. What I would do is I would mow my lawn close right now, cut it a little bit closer than normal. We don't want to scalp it, but we're going to cut it a lot closer than normal, and then aerate it. Aerate your lawn, and where all those plugs are pulled out, that's where all the new grass is going to come up. So mow it close, aerate it, broadcast your new seed right over the top of it. Go out there and just rake it lightly. We're going to rake it with a leaf rake, just kind of like we're out sweeping the grass, and it's going to brush that seed that's going to fall down into those holes. Yeah, and that's going to be a place for that grass seed to germinate and to take, and then fertilize. Humate, seeds, new lawn starter, or like a 16 type fertilizer, just to give that new grass something to feed on. And within a couple of weeks, you'll have all brand new grass coming up in all those holes.
Coming up.
Yeah. So the seed's going to germinate super fast right now because the ground's warm, but air temperatures are cooler, so you don't have to water as much. And if you're going to overseed, you want a little bit of moisture out there every day. So if we're not getting a rainstorm, we're going to turn the sprinklers on for like 5 minutes every day just to keep a little bit of moisture out there.
Just to dampen it.
Yeah, just to dampen it. And then 7 to 10 days, you're going to have all new grass coming up in all those holes. And when you aerate, it leaves a pocket. There's nothing growing there because you've pulled the root system and the grass, the turf out of that section. And so you've got to replace it with something, or else you're just going to have weeds coming up in those holes. And so when you aerate, it's always a great idea to add that seed, throw a little bit of fertilizer, throw some humate on. All of a sudden your grass is going to be growing like crazy, and now you've incorporated some very resistant grass into your existing turf, so you don't have to water as much. You'll never have to put insecticide or disease control on. If we get enough of those new grasses in there, they just are super resistant to diseases and insects. So yeah, it saves you a lot of money in the long run.
So fertilize, cut back on the watering right now.
Yeah.
A great time to aerate.
Yeah, really the best time of year to aerate. A lot of people aerate in the spring, and that's fine. Spring is great. But in the fall, it gives you more time for the grass to recuperate. So it's going into dormancy instead of coming out of dormancy like it is in the springtime. So you aerate in late September, early October, and the grass has all winter long to recover from the damage that you've done. You've got time for that new seed to germinate and come up, and it's just a great way to rejuvenate a lawn that's maybe a little tired and maybe a little bit old, and maybe you'd like it to be more insect and disease resistant. I mean, it's really nice to not have to put an insecticide out there every year
all the time.
Yeah. It gets really expensive. If you're putting an insecticide down 2 or 3 times a year because you got grubs or billbugs that are attacking your lawn, it's a lot less expensive to just incorporate new grass into there, and all of a sudden you don't have to use the insecticide anymore. So
really helps prepare your lawn as we head into the winter months.
Yeah. And then I will plan on putting my winterizer on as late as possible. I like to put the winterizer on sometime between Halloween and Thanksgiving. And sometimes I'll even push that into the first part of December, depending on what the weather does.
The snow's looking like.
Yeah. So I want to put that on as late as possible, so the grass is pretty much already gone dormant, and then that fertilizer is going to sit there and feed it all winter long underneath the snow. And in the spring, the snow is going to melt, and the grass is just going to go take off like crazy. So good way to go.
So fertilize the lawn, cut back on the watering, and now as far as gardening, helping to prepare our garden for the winter months. A lot of us are
Yeah.
pulling back the corn. We're pulling back the plants.
And there's a lot of plants that are done.
Yeah.
You know, so like peas and spinach and lettuce, they're like gone. If you didn't replace it with something else, you know, you got a bare spot. The beans are kind of finishing up. Corn, I've like finished off all the corn. And so now's actually a really good time to put a cover crop out there. So you can plant a cover crop that will put some nutrition back into the soil, put some organic matter back into the soil, and you've got perfect conditions where the rain's coming, where all that stuff's going to germinate instead of weeds coming up. And so clover, buckwheat, vetch, winter rye, or annual rye would be great. And you can just like put this in a broadcast spreader and just broadcast it out, maybe rake it just a little bit to incorporate it into the soil. And then all these storms that are coming, they'll get enough moisture, that stuff will germinate and come up. It'll just come up like crazy. And you just let it grow. Just let it grow. And if it gets 4 to 6 inches tall before winter sets in, great, that's awesome. And then just till it in. And it puts nutrition, it puts like nutrient back into the soil. It'll put a lot of organic matter back into the soil. It'll build your soil back up. It'll help keep the clay from clumping up. I mean, it has so many benefits of adding a cover crop into your soil. And mid-September, perfect time to get that. It's got a month or so to grow, maybe even 6 weeks by the time you like till it in the end of October. It's not going to be really tall, but 2 or 3 or even 4 inches of a cover crop are going to work back into your soil when you till the garden this fall, and then it's going to break down over winter, and it'll be perfect for you to garden next year.
Okay.
Yeah, so really good time to do
great
that.
Time to jump on a cover crop. And
in fact, maybe I'll run home and do some today.
Get that done. And of course, we still have a few plants that are still holding on. Squash plants.
Yeah.
Don't touch the squash yet. We want to keep those going until we start to see the first early light frost.
Yeah.
And then we can start pulling those.
I harvested a butternut squash just 2 days ago, and they're close. Yeah, they're close, but it's nice if you can let them mature all the way out in the garden. And if your vines aren't dead, then they won't be damaged by the heat or the sun or anything. So if they're still attached to the vine, they're still getting nutrient and water, so they'll be fine. It's when your vines are dead that they're not going to.
Then you might as well.
Yeah, then you just got to bring them inside. Yeah, so if you've got totally dead vines, then go out there and harvest them and bring them in. But if the vines are still alive, let them just stay out there. They'll mature. They'll be fine out there. But a light frost to kill the vines back is like perfect to harvest those squash, bring those into your curing location, and that's where we're going to keep our onions and pretty much the onions and the squash is where I put in a warm, dry location for 3 or 4 weeks. Let them cure, let them develop that hard outer skin, and then we'll gather those up and then put them into the storage location. Put them into 38 to 48 degrees, dry, good air circulation, and then they'll just keep a lot longer for you that way.
You get a skin on them that you have to almost use a buck saw to cut through.
Yes, those are the squash
and they'll
that we
last
like.
for 6 months. Yeah.
Those are the squash that we like. So
now also there's still a lot tomatoes. We're still trying to ripen those up, and of course raspberries.
Yeah.
Fall raspberries are taking off.
We saw lots of diseases on the tomatoes this year, so it's been quite a few years since we've had disease problems in our garden. But this year I've lost 4 plants out of our usual 30, and this doesn't happen too often. But this year it appears that there have been all kinds of diseases that have really taken their toll on tomato plants. And all 4 of my tomatoes that did not do well are heirloom varieties. They're older varieties. They're not as disease resistant. So I lost a bunch of our Cherokee Purple. I lost a cherry tomato that was heirloom cherry tomatoes, a black cherry tomato, and they just don't have the disease resistance that some of the other plants do. So my Big Beef Plus and my Lemon Boy Plus and our Better Boy Plus plants are just lush and green and gorgeous and producing like crazy, and I'll have all those varieties available for next year. But they have not been affected by the diseases at all. But some of my other tomatoes, my Brandywines, just took them right out.
Just knocked
the
them
Cherokee
down.
Purples, I had to yank 3 of them because they were just not good. And so disease has been difficult. So best way to control that, keep that from coming back and being a problem next year is to make sure and use complete disease control. Or the new Fungi 5 from Fertilome has a natural bacteria in there that kills diseases in the soil as well as on the plant. And so I'll treat my plants as I'm planting them with that complete disease control and water them with it so it gets down into the soil. It will fight diseases off that are soil-borne, but it'll also fight off airborne diseases like bacterial speck. And it works on early and late blight, which we've seen a bunch of this year. It works on verticillium and fusarium, which we've seen a bunch this year. I mean, just all these diseases that have really ravaged the tomatoes this year, those disease controls will help control them. But you got to start early. Like as soon as you get them planted, you got to be on top of it, and then treat them like once every 2 weeks for the first part of the summer until 1st of July, and then I cut back at that point.
Okay.
But by then the plants are just flourishing and going crazy. So
just awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I was over talking to my folks the other night, and my dad pulled out this fruit salad, and he's like, "You got to try this." He said, "We have struggled with raspberries for years," and he goes, "We heard you and Mark talking about our raspberries may just need a little iron." So we went down, and he's telling me the story. I went down into Anderson's, and I grabbed a big bag of iron, and I just dumped that all over those raspberries. He goes, "I've never had such a great raspberry crop." And they were big, beautiful, big raspberries. I thought, well, way to go. At least I've got a happy dad.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody else yesterday, and it's basically the same thing. It's like, we planted raspberries 3 years ago, and they didn't really do too much last year. And then we fertilized them last fall and did iron on them. And then we did it again this spring because he told me to do it, twice a year. And he's like, they're just going crazy.
Everywhere.
They look amazing. They're only 3 years old. And he's like, man, they're just producing raspberries like mad. You got to feed them. You just have to feed them. And so many people are coming into the store right now, and they're just like, my fruit are small. They're not producing very much. And whether it's raspberries or whether it's their apples or, whatever it is, we've got to remember to fertilize those plants, because between watering and stressful conditions and just time, a lot of that nutrient that's there in the soil just gets consumed or lost or eroded away, and they're just kind of starving out there. So if you want production, you got to feed them, and you got to feed them consistently. You got to feed them what they like. And so it's important that you know what fertilizer you're using, if it's good for fruit trees, or if it's good for raspberries, or if it's good for strawberries. When you use the right fertilizer on them, you don't have to feed them every day. We just want to feed them, consistently at least once a year, if not twice a year, and it will really, really encourage a lot more growth, a lot more production, and you'll be a lot more satisfied with what you're harvesting at the end of the season.
Yeah. So
it makes a big difference. The iron for the raspberries, it's almost essential that you do it every single year, because between our soil, our alkaline soil, and our weather conditions, you just end up losing a lot of that available iron. And the plants they just need it.
Yeah.
They just need it.
Just pile it on.
Yeah.
They'll use it. They'll use it. Well, we've got just a couple minutes left. I want to mention again the fall cash sale.
Yes.
50% off.
If you pay with cash, you get 50% off all of our remaining trees and shrubs and evergreens and vines and even our perennial flowers right now. But if you decide you want to pay with a credit card or with a check or with a debit card, you'll still get 40% off. But if you pay with cash, you get that extra 10% bonus, and you get 50% off on the plants. And we still have a great selection of plants in stock right now. So good time to come in. Great time to plant. Timing couldn't be better for planting trees or shrubs, cooler temperatures, moist soil. It's like perfect. Perfect time for planting. And, make sure you dig your holes nice and wide and big. And we'll give you instructions. We've got a great planting guide at Anderson's that'll walk you right through the whole process. I even have a photographic planting guide that gives you pictures that shows you exactly how to do it. Or you could watch our video on our website that walks you through the whole process.
Pretty much you'll do everything but dig the hole for people.
Exactly. This is how you do it. But if you do it the way we instruct you to, you're almost guaranteed to be successful. I mean, we just don't have that many problems if you follow our process, and it just works every single time if you do what we encourage you to do when it's time to plant. Mad Money bulb exchange is going on right now as well too, so you can exchange Mad Money. If you've collected Mad Money from Anderson's over the summer, you can exchange those for bulbs. So it's a 1-to-1 exchange, Mad Money to bulbs. And today we've got the marathon going on this morning. Latino Festival this afternoon. afternoon. It is a party going on Center Street.
Yeah,
so much
blocked
fun.
off the street, and it's just a great time to head down.
It is.
Enjoy the food trucks. They'll have the Latino parade coming up this afternoon.
Yeah.
And then they've also got Zumba classes and just a lot of other
all kinds
stuff.
of fun things. The Latino Festival was a blast last year. It just took us by surprise. It was really a lot of fun. And so we're excited that they're doing it again this year. Yeah,
First year last year, and glad to be a part of it again this year.
Excited.
And coming up next week, we'll talk more bowls. We'll talk more garlic. We'll talk about, most of the plants are going to be kind of getting down to the end of their life in the garden. And
it'll be time to start prepping for next year.
Yeah, it will be.
Prepping for next year.
So we hope you join us again next week. You've been listening to The Garden Guide with Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden here on News Talk KVNU. Join us again next week.
The newsmakers, the stories.
This is a situation that is rapidly spinning out of control.
Get it all here. News Talk KVNU